So firstly, it's important to note that you can go to Window, and then you can load the default editor layout. So don't worry about making a mistake. You can always load the default layout again. So let's say I want to hide this tab. You can right click on it, you can close it and so on, and you can hide it. You can see that will collapse it, and now we get this gold kind of in the corner, similar to what we have on this toolbar. So you can actually left click on that, and you can see we get the toolbar. And the main reason why that one is collapsed is because we don't really move it. It typically stays in its place up here. You can hide that again. You actually have one with your viewport as well. You can see you have viewport 1. So I'll just hide that. To bring it back, again you click on that gold corner. That will bring it back. You can close it by either clicking on that X, or you can right click in the context menu and then go close. Okay, so how do we get that back now? You go to Window, and then you select what you want. So the world outliner, and we can move these around. Left click and hold and drag on that tab, and then you can drag that around, dock it where you want it. So if I want to dock it in the space up here, I can do that. If I want to dock it to the left, now I have that split, and we now get a divider. You can have these side by side if you want, depending on your space constraints. You can drag this guy off. So in these sides, you will see it will dock. Okay, depending on where you hover, it will dock. Or if you left click and drag up here somewhere, you can see the tab will stay. Or if you drag in that top section, it's going to dock and split it like that. But again, if you left click and hold and drag on that tab, and you hover in the center, so this center section, and let go, it's going to become a floating window. So it's not going to dock. So it won't dock in that case. And this is useful if you have another monitor. So if you have 2 monitors, which I recommend you do, if you want to do game development in Unreal Engine, at least for your content browser. So now we have this floating window. I'll dock that back up here. So the content browser is a bit special in that it can be docked down here, but you can also drag it off. And I can now dock it up here if I want. I can tear it off, and I can add it on another window as I mentioned, and so on. I can also add it wherever I want within the layout of my level editor. You can see I can add it to the right here if I want, and so on. As you play around with it, you'll see it's fairly easy. The sections, like where you hover, is divided up into these like 5 sections. If you hover to the sides, it will dock over there. If you hover in the center section and you let go, then it will create a floating window. Now I can tear this guy off, and then I can add it back over here again. Now I'm pretty much back to where I was previously. So let's say I want these 2 tabs side by side up here. So I'll bring the details panel up. So now I can have these 2, next to each other. And I want to save that. I can go to Window and Save Layout. Save Layout As. You can also export your layout. You can give it a name and a description. We can go to Window, Load Layout, and now your layout will show up in there. So we have the default one. I'll just load that default one back. Okay, looks like this. And load layout, my cool layout. And we have it with these 2 next to each other now. Okay, so that is pretty much what you need to know with regards to this. Bring that guy out. Dock that up there. You can see you can override it. And just a reminder, if you close off the content browser, you can get it back by clicking on content right over here, Ctrl-Shift-F for that. Or you can click on Window, Content Browser 1, that will bring it back up again. As you can see, you have 4 of these, so you can have 4 content browsers open. So I'll bring another one up, and now maybe I can dock that one on another screen, or I can dock that over here. So I can go into starter content and blueprints, and this one over here, I can go maybe to maps or materials or architecture, and you can see that these two are different. So it just gives us some flexibility. I'll close that off quickly, and I'll open up the level blueprint. You can see we can dock these main tabs next to each other, and as I mentioned previously, this main editor, the level editor, is persistent, so this will stay open until you actually close the program or the engine down. But these other editors, you can close those off clicking that X or right click and do close. And you can see if I left click and drag, I cannot go and dock this somewhere in my level editor, because this by itself is an editor. It's not part of the level editor, it is a blueprint editor. Similarly, we have these panels. So let's do the My Blueprint panel. I'll tear that off, and then I can left click and drag. Now I can try and dock that in the level editor, but you'll see it won't dock. That's again because it's not part of that editor. It is part of the blueprint editor. Just close that one off. Another option that you might find useful is in the editor preferences. So under edit, editor preferences, and that has to do with the size of these icons. Okay, so under user interface, so this is under general appearance. You can always search up here if you don't find it under all settings, but what we are looking for is use small toolbar icons. If you enable that, set that to true, you will see that these icons are very small now. So as you develop, you'll become very familiar with what these icons do. It's very obvious that this is the play button, for example, and so on. And especially if you have a small screen, you might want to give yourself some extra screen real estate, some space to work with, which again is why it is useful to go and hide those tabs, just to kind of create more space for yourself so that you can kind of focus on what is important. I'll try and keep these to the defaults as much as possible to try and help you, to try and avoid confusion. Because as a beginner, it might be useful to see like what the buttons actually are. But as you can see, that makes a huge difference in how much space this takes up. So I'll just go and do that again. You can see that makes a big difference. Okay, so I'll close off the editor preferences for now. So I think I'm going to leave it here. Again, the goal is not to cover every single option and feature that you have. We will talk about more and more of this stuff as we go along.